one sheet and endless ephemera. Watch me build a masterboard today, or come build one with me. Welcome, I'm Ingrid Carlson, and I am so glad that you're here with me today. I hope that this video blesses you and inspires you to create your own masterboard today. And the best news is, if your desk is a mess, that is a good thing. I'm about to show you how to turn that fun, beautiful, lovely chaos into many pieces that you can use. I want to start off by talking about masterboards and what they are, defining them, and how we can use them and all that. And you may have had interactions with a masterboard before. You may have created masterboards before, but I want to look at this through a different lens. So normally a masterboard is a large collage, usually put down on some type of paper. I'm showing you here on some heavyweight watercolor paper, but also I'm using some of my, remember, ugly 12 by 12 paper sheets. It's a great use for those. And especially when you're building that big of a size, you get so many options in the end. You're going to see just a few options that I'm going to give you at the very end, so make sure that you stay tuned. This is a good time to save this video for a later date. This is a great project to do when you're not really sure what to do, but you want to create something. You want to use up the scraps on your desk, and you want to kind of get into that creative mode. So, like I said, master boards are pieces of collage that are put down on paper. A lot of times they are built in layers. You have your base papers, then you have focal points, and you can even have ephemera on top of them. We're going to do things a little bit differently today because I want these masterboards to truly be just backgrounds for you to be able to embellish however you want. So they're pieces that you're going to be able to pull from your stash, and you're going to be able to put whatever type of theme that you want on top of them. These are going to be mainly neutrals. I am going to add a little pop of color here and there, but for the most part, I'm keeping them fairly neutral without a ton of color and almost, I would say, personality. And that's because I want to build on them. The thing about masterboards is that even though you are using your scraps that are on your desk, they are designed for cohesion. One board is going to yield so many matching pieces, and they look like they come from the same collection. So what this means is, with a piece of 12 by 12 paper that you're no longer using, you're going to collage some pieces on top of it, and you're going to be able to have ephemera for a whole journal. Now, if you're like me and you like extra ephemera, you might want to do 2 or 3 of these, but you understand what I'm getting to. These are really great as bases. Now that we've kind of put into perspective what a masterboard is, why should you even bother making one? Well, like I said earlier, it might be because you want to create something. You want to just build something without a lot of thought, without a lot of intention, but you want to be creative. You don't want idle hands, and you want something that maybe gets the thought process going. These are also really great for speed because you can do a lot of them at once. Off screen, I actually built the other two that I'm going to show you using that 12 by 12 paper. And when you're working assembly style, you can go really quickly on these. And so this is a project that you can do without overthinking, and that really is going to help you out in the long run. Even though right now it seems like you're just putting pieces together, you're going to really thank yourself in the future for having these pieces that are ready to be built on. Another little blip that I want to add here is depending on how thick you like your journals, you might want to stick with thinner paper as the base instead of something like this, which is the thick 300 GSM watercolor paper, because it does tend to add bulk. The other really, I think maybe one of the best reasons for you to make a masterboard today is because it is scrap control. It uses up all of your little cutoffs, your test prints, your maybe meh papers that you didn't know what to do with, but you didn't want to toss them. Now you can use them in a very purposeful way. This is also a very low pressure project. Decisions happen in batches, which kills that perfectionism, and it warms your hand, it warms your brain to know that it is time to create. When I was playing tennis a ton, I remember my first ever coach saying that it was really important to have a practice, and that whenever I went on court, there are certain things that I should do every time. And that was kind of the way to signal to my brain that, okay, it's tennis time. So, for example, anything that you do before you start, whether you are playing, let's take tennis for example, you're putting on tennis clothes that you would normally really only wear for tennis. Then you get on to the court and maybe you do stretches that you only do before tennis. This is a signal to the brain that it is time to play tennis. In the same way, you can use a masterboard to signal to your brain that it is time to get creative. This is also a really fun time to let the ideas just pour out. We're going to start by stamping for our first part of the creative process. And this is now also another added kind of mindless activity, because remember, we're going to be cutting these up to use in different projects, which we don't even know what they are yet. So don't let your brain trick you into thinking it needs to design something perfect right now. Instead, we are just adding pieces wherever, we're stamping wherever it just feels right. And I'm going to show you that I'm using stamps with just the stamp by itself as well as on an acrylic block. And I think both have a good space. I think that if you use your hands, you're going to get a less crisp image, which is really nice. And you're going to see that in my end products. I don't know if I like them better, but I like them just as much. Here you can also experiment with different colors. Like I said, I wanted to keep the base to be pretty neutral, but I am going to use some browns and blacks in order to create the looks I want. But I think that adding a little pop of color would be beautiful here. For example, like a rusty red would just give it enough pop, especially if you're using it sporadically and not dousing your page with the red or with blue or green or whatever color you want to do. And remember, since we are cutting these up later on, you can use multiple colors on the same masterboard. I would just say to be mindful and keep them in quadrants. Maybe your top left quadrant is red, then your top right is blue, the bottom left is yellow, and the bottom right is green. And this will keep it from kind of becoming muddled and also becoming a little too colorful. Now, if that's something that you're going for, and let's say you're working on a rainbow journal or a Wizard of Oz journal, then yeah, make it colorful, add all of the colors and have fun. The thing about repetitive creation is that repeating a move reveals what actually works and what is just occasionally good. So, for example, for me, when I was first creating masterboards, I realized that I didn't love them, and that's because I was using all different shapes. What I like about now creating masterboards is I use mainly just squares and rectangles, and this really streamlines for me. I really like the, I guess, perfectionism in those shapes without having to be perfect in where I lay the pieces down. This also gives me a faster flow. My hands automatically know a sequence and it takes me less time to do them. Grids are always my friend. The edges all align and they create a rhythm and a calmness. And the thing is, we're going to break that up later with the creative process that I'm going to share with you. But for now, get lost in that rhythm and the calmness of having all of the pieces kind of match up perfectly. For our next creative process, we are going to add more texture through stencils. Now, usually when I use stencils, I'll use a modeling paste, but today I'm going to use some gesso. And I believe this is Liquitex gesso that I put in a little mason jar that is just really pretty on my desk. And I've had it this way, it's easier so that I don't contaminate my whole big jar of gesso. Gesso is going to be lighter, so it's not going to give us such a three-dimensional look as a modeling paste. But what comes, or what I like from that, is that if you make a mistake, you can wipe it off. And then also, it kind of blends into the background a little more. And I think that there is definitely a place for that. The beautiful raised texture is just stunning on the page. You might not even see it at first, but when you look down, especially once it's cut up, you can see the different types of textures on your masterboard, and they are so beautiful. They add so much interest, and I absolutely love this step. So if you don't want to stamp, I would definitely still do the stencil. And if you don't have your own gesso, I do have a recipe on my channel, and I'll link it in the description below, how you can make your own modeling paste. And they are really simple ingredients that you might already even have in your kitchen. The other wonderful thing about these stencils is that they are water resistant. So you can color them and they aren't really going to take the color that much. And I'm going to use that to my advantage a little later on with the next step that we're going to do. And you're going to see how that just really makes it come to life. Another little tip that I want to add here is that even if you do not want to wash your stencils, it's a really good idea to wipe them down with a wet wipe or a napkin. Another really great tip that I've learned is to keep a little bin of warm soapy water next to you and then just add your stencils in there once you're completely done. The reason I didn't do that with this project is because I'm working with three different masterboards. I didn't know if I was completely done, so I'm just wiping them off in between uses. Our fourth step, and probably the yummiest, is I'm going to be using some instant coffee. I love using instant coffee because of the color and the smell. This is a very purposeful way of coffee dyeing without having to submerge the pages, wait for them to dry. You can really use coffee in the best way. I've grabbed this little, I think it's an ashtray actually, that I got at an estate sale, and I have a little bit of warm water in there, and then I've added coffee. This point, you can decide how rich you want your color. I want this to be very coffee, very dark. And so I'm going to actually add a little more coffee in just a minute, but you can dilute this as much or as little as you want. I also love putting the coffee mixture into a little vessel because once it dries, it almost solidifies, and then you can re-wet it with a little bit of water and use it over and over again until you're done. I'm taking a plastic palette knife and I'm dipping it into my coffee mixture. I found that this worked even better than a paintbrush because it really allowed me to keep my lines concentrated and to really control where I wanted the coffee to go. Now, if you are not like that, you don't want to be precise and you just want to have fun and get your hands dirty and play with coffee, then by all means, be messy, be exaggerative, add as much coffee as you want. There is absolutely no wrong way of doing this. I also noticed something kind of accidental, and that is that I'm going to add some splatters with this brush that I think came maybe in a watercolor set. I'm not really sure where it came from, but it is a true watercolor brush. It's a rounded, pointy brush and kind of stiffer bristles, but it gave me the best splatters, and I never would have thought of that at all. So I was happily surprised by that. Also, you could see there that I am painting in between the gesso, and look how beautiful it makes that flower just pop out. Now, I do want to mention something here. Coffee is not archival. That means it is not meant to last the time. It could deteriorate your paper, and that's something just to keep in the back of your mind. It's not something that I worry about. I think I've found papers that have had coffee stains on them from years and years ago, and they're still okay. So it's something that I'm willing to take on. Also, the other thing is if you don't want the coffee to sink into the fibers of the papers, you could also add a light clear gesso on top of your whole masterboard, and that'll allow it not to penetrate all the way through. I like the way that it looks because I do think it adds that yummy antique grunginess that I'm looking for. Another thing you can do is add some drops of the coffee mixture and then hold your paper upright or hold it to the side and let the water just flow down as drips. I think that that looks really pretty. And remember that we don't know what pieces we're going to cut out and how we're going to cut them out right now. So just have fun with this part. I've talked about this before, but when you start working in an assembly line style and you begin to just let your hands create and get lost in that process, then a lot of really great things can happen. And one of those is the play. It's the discovery of what if I put this and what will happen. So I decided to take some of the coffee and put it directly down on some damp coffee water that was already on my substrate. And then with a little bit of water on my brush, I kind of smushed it down. I don't want to move it around. I want to add just enough water to activate that instant coffee. And it's going to give me such a richness that I absolutely love. It gives a shine to where the coffee is, and it's one of my favorite processes. So much so that then I took my wet paintbrush and dipped it directly into the instant coffee mixture and then kept playing with it. And look at all of these yummy, grungy lines. And I know that you know this smells divine. This is the masterboard once it's dried. You can see that some of those coffee splatters have lightened up just a little bit, and you can really get lost in the beauty of all of the different textures that we have used. Another thing to note here is that if you are at this part and you feel like you want more stamping, add more stamping. If you want more stenciling, add more stenciling. If you want more coffee, add more coffee. And if you want more of all three, add them here. I don't think that you'll ever regret adding more embellishing and more, it's just adding more depth to your piece. And I think that it just gets lovelier and lovelier. And if you mess it up, it's okay. It was just scraps, and you can always cover over it and use it really just as a backdrop, just kind of peeking through your layers. You can also use it with clustering in between clusters instead of as the base, you can use it as pieces in the middle. And speaking of what we're going to be using it for, let's talk about what we can use masterboards for. Really, the uses are limitless. And if there's something that I don't mention and it's something that you like to use your masterboard for, leave a comment down in the description below because we can all learn from one another. And I'd love to hear your ideas. But the things that come to my mind immediately are tags, journal cards, bookmarks. You can even make ATCs if you've ever heard of those. And if you haven't and you want to know more about those, leave a comment down below and asking me about those, and it'll remind me to give you more information on those. But you can make pockets and envelopes, you can make belly bands, tabs, page edges, clusters, faux washi strips. I mean, really, there's so many different things. I even used it for corners. It really, there is no wrong way to use these. Think of it as your own background paper, but even better because it has so much dimension and so much personality that it really just speaks for itself. It's so beautiful. And honestly, I think that everyone should make masterboards and have them. Now, remember the difference between the masterboard and the snippet roll is the snippet roll we were making into a specific size, and then we were decorating the snippet rolls. You could still cut them out and use them similar to a masterboard. The difference here is that we have one big substrate that is all in my case, neutrals, but you could, let's say, go with all blues or greens. And then we are using those in a later date to make a project with. Here I am building a simple tag. I am just going to cut out some ephemera from the summertime kit, which I'm still creating so many things with, and it just reminded me that I need to print some of my other pages again so I can use them even more. This is such a lovely kit, and if you haven't gotten your hands on it, make sure that you do. It's completely free and it's listed in the description below. So I'm just going to add some layering, and I've left the majority of the process for you so that you could see kind of my decision making skills and how I decide to layer. For the most part, it's not really, I do follow a formula, which I have a video on, but for the most part, it's just what feels right. I know that I like to have a couple of pages or pieces at the bottom that are my anchor, and then I like to have a focal point, and I usually like to have a sentiment, which in this case, I'm going to handwrite a little quote, and then I'm going to, instead of putting it on top of the cluster, I'm going to put it on the tag itself. And I think this is just a sweet, fast project that you can make. Part of the design process did get cut off because my battery was full, and so I wasn't able to finish showing you this, but I'm going to come right back in a little bit and I'm going to show you other projects that I made off camera. I'm back upstairs and I'm going to finish working on more little projects. I have the tag, which the video ran out on yesterday, and I wanted to share my lemonade with you. I've seen videos of the fair lemonades. You know which ones I'm talking about, with the big plastic cup. It's almost like a bucket, and they muddle the lemons. And so I wanted to do some for my for myself. And I wanted to show you. It's actually really good and refreshing. And what's great is that you can decide how much sugar you want to put in it. And all I did was I squeezed the lemon and muddled a little bit of sugar with it. You can use the back end of a wooden spoon, works really great. And then I added ice and water, and that's it. And it's a refreshing drink, and I got it at home. I realized that I never really gave a full view of the finished pieces of the masterboard. So here are the pieces that I have left over after the projects that I've made. And I just wanted to show you how pretty they are, even just like sitting like this, cut up. They are so pretty. I mean, you can really see all of the different possibilities that you have in every piece that you cut out. It's literally every piece that you cut out. There's not one that's ugly or feels not good. And if you have come to that point where you feel like there's a piece that's missing a little bit of coffee, guess what? You can add your coffee now. Like I said before, there are absolutely no rules in this. So here is a close up of the tag that we made online, and I think that that little trim got cut off. I also wanted you to see all of the little bits that are peeking through. Do you see that on the edges? They're so beautiful. The little coffee splatters looks like foxing off old papers, and I absolutely love this. I think that it is such a wonderful project to do. I also made this little cluster that can be added on the corner of one of your pages. It can be added to the front. It's just a couple of different pieces of the masterboard. You can see this one where it lines up here perfectly, and then another piece that was discarded. So your pieces become pieces, but they're all usable and beautiful. And I just layered them with a little bulb pin with a bead, and it came out so pretty. Remember that um, embossed paper that I made a couple days ago? Well, I'm using just a little scrap bit of it, and I am adding a little quote: "Wisdom begins in wonder" by Socrates. And right there, I have a little card that I can either glue down into my book, I can add into a pocket, or it could be the front. For the like for a cover, it can be the crown jewel. Here is a side pocket, and I have embellished it with different types of papers that I had in my scrap bin, including some more embossed paper because I'm in love with it. I added some paper ruffles at the bottom, and look at how beautiful, with very little work, you get a piece that looks like it took you forever to make. It looks like it's very purposeful and very deliberate when it was almost accidental. I think one of my favorite projects is this, and that is a topper for your journal. And you can make these, and then when you have journals, in stick them on top of the journal. You can also put these inside as inserts. I've done a project like this before that I absolutely loved, and I think that these would work really perfectly for this. And now I want to know, which one is your favorite of all of the ones that I showed? Is there one that sticks out to you, one that maybe you hadn't seen before and it kind of encouraged you or inspired you to go make today? I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you for all of your love and support. I want to thank you for every single comment. I'm slowly getting through them. But I want you to know that I read them, I take them to heart, and they literally fill me with joy every single day. I want to remind you today that you are special, you are beautiful, you are lovely, you are kind, and you are strong. But most of all, you are loved unconditionally. Make sure that you stay tuned to the very end where I have some video choices that I think that you might enjoy. Until next time, love you. Bye.